"Don't you dare touch her," the billionaire yelled at her ex. "She is my fiancée." Before we dive into today's story, let us know in the comments where you are listening from today. And if you believe that karma always catches up to those who break a loyal heart, make sure to hit that like button. Now let's begin. To understand the absolute shock that rippled through the grand ballroom of the Ashcroft Plaza that night, you first have to understand the two people at the center of the storm. Lyla White was a woman who knew the exact cost of a broken promise. At 26, she had spent the last 4 years of her life pouring every ounce of her energy, her savings, and her heart into a man who ultimately bled her dry. Her ex-boyfriend, Mark, was a charming, ambitious man with grand dreams of starting his own tech company. But dreams cost money, and Mark was perfectly content using Lyla's. She had worked double shifts as a high-end event florist, waking up at 4 in the morning to arrange thousands of roses just to pay the rent and fund Mark's endless business expenses. She had believed him when he said they were building a future together. She had believed him right up until the afternoon she came home early and found him packing his bags. His tech startup had finally received its first round of massive venture capital funding, and overnight, Mark had decided that a struggling florist didn't fit into his new, wealthy lifestyle. He left her with a shattered heart, a mountain of shared debt in her name, and a cold parting remark that she simply wasn't ambitious enough for the circles he was about to enter. That was 6 months ago. Since then, Lyla had built walls out of pure ice around her heart. She worked relentlessly, taking on the most grueling, high-pressure floral contracts in the city, just to dig herself out of the financial hole Mark had left her in. She was exhausted, entirely closed off to the idea of love, and focused on nothing but survival. William Ashcroft, on the other hand, didn't just survive in his world, he owned it. At 29, William was the sole heir and CEO of Ashcroft Enterprises, a global conglomerate that seemingly had a hand in everything from luxury real estate to international shipping. He was a man carved from marble, tall, impeccably dressed in bespoke suits with piercing gray eyes that were notoriously impossible to read. The media called him a machine. He was ruthless in negotiations, completely intolerant of incompetence, and famously guarded about his personal life. To William, emotions were a liability, a variable that couldn't be quantified or controlled on a spreadsheet. He didn't do romance. He did mergers, which made the events of the annual Ashcroft Winter Charity Gala all the more unbelievable. The gala was the crown jewel of the Manhattan social season. Hosted in the breathtaking glass-domed atrium of the Ashcroft Plaza, it was a night of overflowing champagne, millions of dollars in charitable donations, and ruthless social climbing. For Lyla, it was the biggest contract of her career. She and her small team had been hired to design and install the floral arrangements for the entire venue, a sprawling, intricate forest of white orchids, silver birch branches, and cascading winter roses. Lyla had been on her feet for 18 hours straight. She was wearing a simple, understated black dress, her dark hair pulled back into a practical knot, a clipboard pressed against her chest as she directed the catering staff around her delicate floral archways. She was invisible to the billionaires and socialites laughing around her, and she preferred it that way. She just needed to get through the next 2 hours, collect her final paycheck, and go home to sleep. But fate, it seemed, had a very different plan. Lyla was standing in a quiet alcove near the grand staircase, making a frantic note on her clipboard about a wilting centerpiece, when she heard a voice that made the blood freeze in her veins. Well, well, if it isn't the girl with the flowers. Lyla slowly turned around, her heart dropping into her stomach. Standing there, holding a glass of expensive bourbon, and wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her entire floral budget, was Mark. He looked dangerously smug. Beside him was a stunning blonde heiress dripping in diamonds, looking completely bored by the interaction. Mark had done exactly what he set out to do. He had climbed the social ladder and attached himself to someone with infinite wealth. "Mark?" Lyla said, her voice tight, fighting the sudden, sickening wave of panic that washed over her. "I'm working. Please leave me alone." "Working?" Mark chuckled, a cruel, mocking sound that grated against Lyla's nerves. He looked her up and down, his eyes lingering on her plain black dress and tired posture. "I see you're still exactly where I left you, Lyla, hustling in the background so the real players can enjoy the party. I told Vanessa, hear all about you. My little charity case." The blonde heiress Vanessa offered a sympathetic, deeply condescending pout, It's so sweet that you still let her do the flowers for these things, Mark. Giving back to the less fortunate is so important. Lyla felt her hands shaking, her fingernails biting into the plastic of her clipboard. The humiliation was hot and suffocating. This man had stolen her savings, ruined her credit, and shattered her trust. And now he was parading his new wealth in her face. "I said, leave me alone," Lyla repeated, her voice shaking with a mixture of suppressed rage and leftover grief. She turned her back to him, desperate to walk away, desperate to disappear into the kitchen before the tears she was fighting managed to fall. But Mark wasn't finished. The power trip was too intoxicating for him. He stepped forward, his hand shooting out and gripping Lyla's upper arm with a bruising, sudden force. He yanked her back around to face him, causing her clipboard to clatter loudly onto the polished marble floor. "Don't turn your back on me when I'm talking to you," Mark hissed, his charming facade dropping to reveal the nasty, controlling man she knew too well. The alcohol on his breath was overpowering. "You don't get to dismiss me, Lyla. You're the help tonight. I'm the guest. You show a little respect or I'll find the event coordinator and make sure your little flower shop never gets a contract in this city again." Lyla gasped, trying to pull her arm free, but his grip was like a vice. Panic flared in her chest. They were in a semi-secluded alcove, but guests were starting to look over, drawn by the sudden clatter of the clipboard and Mark's raised voice. "Let go of me, Mark! You're hurting me!" Lyla pleaded, her voice cracking, the tears finally welling in her eyes. "I'll let go when I'm good and ready," Mark sneered, leaning in close, enjoying the fear in her eyes. "You need to learn your place. Don't you dare touch her." The voice didn't just cut through the tension, it absolutely obliterated it. It was a voice forged in steel, deep, resonant, and vibrating with a lethal, terrifying authority. Mark froze. Vanessa gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Stepping out from the shadows of the grand staircase was William Ashcroft. He looked like an absolute god of vengeance in his tailored black tuxedo. His jaw was clenched so tightly a muscle ticked in his cheek, and his piercing gray eyes were locked onto Mark's hand where it was still gripping Lyla's arm. The ambient chatter of the nearby guests completely died away. When William Ashcroft spoke in that tone, the world stopped spinning to listen. Mark's face drained of all color. He immediately released Lyla's arm, taking a hurried, stumbling step backward. He recognized the billionaire instantly. Everyone in that room relied on William Ashcroft's goodwill to maintain their status. "Mr. Ashcroft?" Mark stammered, his arrogance vanishing into thin air, replaced by sheer, unadulterated terror. I was just..." William didn't look at Mark. He didn't even acknowledge his existence yet. His intense gaze shifted to Lyla. He took in her pale, frightened face, the unshed tears shining in her eyes, and the red, angry marks beginning to form on her bare arm where Mark had grabbed her. Something dark and dangerous flared in the billionaire's eyes. He closed the distance between them in two long, purposeful strides. Without a word, William reached out and, gently, almost reverently, placed his hand on the small of Lyla's back, pulling her flush against his side. The warmth of his touch sent a sudden, startling jolt of electricity through her entire body, overriding her panic. William finally turned his gaze back to Mark. The look he gave the younger man was enough to freeze hell over. "I will give you exactly 3 seconds to step away from her," William said, his voice dropping to a dangerously quiet register that echoed perfectly in the silent alcove. "Mr. Ashcroft, there's been a misunderstanding," Mark pleaded, sweating profusely now, desperate to save face in front of Vanessa and the growing crowd of onlookers. "This woman is just a florist. She's my ex-girlfriend. She was causing a scene, and I was just trying to control the situation. She is my fiancée." The words dropped like a nuclear bomb in the middle of the Ashcroft Plaza. Lyla stopped breathing. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought it might shatter. She looked up at William's sharp, immovable profile, her mind completely blanking. Fiancé? She had never spoken a single word to this man in her entire life. Mark looked as though he had been physically struck. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Your fiancé? But she's just... If you ever speak to her again," William continued, ignoring Mark's blubbering, his voice carrying the absolute, terrifying weight of a promise. "If you ever look in her direction, or if you ever dare to lay a hand on her again, I will personally ensure that every single door in this city is slammed in your face. I will buy your pathetic little tech startup by morning. dismantle it piece by piece and ruin you. Do you understand me? Mark was trembling. He looked at Lyla, then at the terrifying titan of industry holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. Yes, sir, Mark whispered, his head bowed in absolute defeat. Get out of my building, William commanded. Mark didn't hesitate. He grabbed a horrified Vanessa by the elbow and practically ran toward the exit, pushing through the whispering crowd to escape the wrath of William Ashcroft. The silence in the alcove was deafening. Hundreds of eyes were now locked onto Lyla and William. The most unattainable bachelor in the world had just announced his engagement to a florist in the middle of his own charity gala. William looked down at Lyla. The dangerous, lethal fury in his eyes had vanished, replaced by something calm and entirely calculating. His hand remained firmly on the small of her back. Smile, darling, William murmured, his lips barely moving as the paparazzi flashes began to fire from the edges of the room. We have a lot to talk about. The flash of the cameras was blinding, a strobe light assault that turned the grand ballroom into a chaotic theater. Lyla stood frozen against William Ashcroft's side, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The scent of his cologne, a sharp, intoxicating blend of cedar and expensive vetiver, was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Walk with me, William murmured, his voice a low rumble that vibrated against her shoulder. His hand shifted from the small of her back to firmly grasp her waist, guiding her through the stunned crowd with the effortless authority of a man parting the sea. The guests stepped aside instantly. Whispers followed them like a physical wake. Lyla kept her eyes fixed on the polished marble floor, her mind spinning so fast she felt entirely detached from her own body. Fiancée, the word echoed in her skull, drowning out the string quartet that had nervously resumed playing in the background. She was a florist with a negative bank balance and a mountain of debt. He was a titan who controlled a global empire. William didn't stop until they reached a set of heavy, brass-studded oak doors at the far end of the atrium. Two massive security guards in dark suits stepped aside, pulling the doors open. William ushered Lyla inside, and the heavy doors clicked shut behind them, instantly cutting off the noise, the music, and the blinding flashes of the paparazzi. They were in William's private executive office. It was a cavernous, breathtaking space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering Manhattan skyline. The room was aggressively modern, decorated in shades of charcoal and slate, entirely devoid of personal touches. It was a room designed for intimidation. William finally released her waist. He walked over to a crystal decanter resting on a dark mahogany credenza, poured a single finger of amber liquid into a glass, and turned to face her. The dangerous, protective fury that had radiated from him in the ballroom was completely gone. In its place was the notorious machine the media wrote about, cold, analytical, and entirely unreadable. "Drink?" he asked, his tone perfectly even. "Are you out of your mind?" Lyla finally found her voice. It came out as a breathless, trembling whisper, but the shock was rapidly burning away, leaving behind a hot flare of anger. "What did you just do? Why would you say that to him? Why would you say that to them?" She gestured wildly toward the heavy oak doors. "There are 100 reporters out there, Mr. Ashcroft. By tomorrow morning, my face is going to be plastered across every tabloid in the country. You just told the entire world that we're engaged. I don't even know you." William took a slow sip from his glass, his piercing gray eyes studying her with an intensity that made Lyla want to take a step back. But she held her ground, lifting her chin, refusing to be intimidated. She had already survived one arrogant man today. She wasn't about to cower before another, no matter how much money he had in the bank. "You're shaking, Miss White," William observed quietly. "I'm furious," Lyla snapped, her dark eyes flashing. "And I want an explanation. You humiliated Mark, which, fine, I won't pretend I didn't enjoy seeing him sweat, but you used me to do it. You made me a target. I'm a florist. My business relies on discretion and hard work, not being dragged into a billionaire's PR stunt." "It wasn't a stunt," William said smoothly, setting his glass down. He crossed the room, stopping just a few feet away from her. The sheer size of him in the quiet office was overwhelming. It was a calculated decision. And to be perfectly accurate, I didn't use you to humiliate your ex-boyfriend. I used the situation to solve a mutual problem. Lyla let out a harsh, incredulous laugh. "A mutual problem? I don't have a problem that involves needing a fake engagement to a man I've never spoken to." I was handling the situation. You were terrified, William corrected, his voice dropping an octave, carrying a sudden, surprising edge of genuine anger. He grabbed you. He threatened your livelihood. I watched the entire exchange from the balcony before I intervened. Men like that, cowards who prey on the vulnerability of others, do not stop unless they are met with a force they cannot overcome. I provided that force. Lyla opened her mouth to argue, but the words died in her throat. She looked at William's rigid jawline. He was right. Mark wouldn't have stopped. He would have ruined her floral business just to prove he could. He would have made sure her name was blacklisted from every event planner in the city. William hadn't just intervened. He had built a fortress around her in a matter of seconds. Okay, Lyla breathed, wrapping her arms defensively around her waist. Thank you, truly. Thank you for stepping in. But you could have just said I was your friend, or your personal florist. You didn't have to announce that we're getting married. Yes, I did, William said, walking around to sit on the edge of his massive desk, crossing his arms over his broad chest. Because, Miss White, I have a problem of my own, and you are going to help me fix it. Lyla blinked, thoroughly confused. Me? How could I possibly help you? William let out a heavy sigh, running a hand through his dark hair. It was the first sign of human frustration she had seen from him. Ashcroft Enterprises is currently in the final stages of acquiring a massive family-owned European shipping conglomerate, William explained, slipping effortlessly into his boardroom persona. It is a deal worth roughly $4 billion. However, the patriarch of the family, the man who holds the controlling shares, is notoriously traditional. He refuses to sell his life's work to a man he considers a reckless, unanchored bachelor. He believes that a man who cannot commit to a family cannot be trusted to manage a legacy. Lyla stared at him, the pieces slowly beginning to click into place. So, your board of directors is pressuring you to settle down. My board is threatening to remove me from the acquisition entirely if I don't prove that I am a stable, family-oriented investment, William corrected, his eyes narrowing slightly. For the past month, my PR team has been desperately trying to set me up with suitable women from acceptable social circles. Heiresses, politicians' daughters, models. They are all transparent, entirely motivated by my bank account and completely intolerable. And then you saw me, Lyla said, her voice dropping. I have been watching you for 3 days, Miss White, William admitted, the blunt honesty of his statement catching Lyla completely off guard. You've been watching me? It's my building, William pointed out casually. I noticed you during the initial floral installations. You arrived at 4 in the morning. You worked straight through the day. You spoke to your staff with respect. You didn't complain. And you didn't stop moving until the job was perfect. You are resilient. You are entirely unimpressed by wealth, and you are fiercely independent. You are the exact opposite of the women my PR team keeps parading into my office. He stood up, slowly walking toward her again. When I saw that pathetic excuse for a man grab your arm tonight, William continued, his voice softening just a fraction, I made a choice. I stepped in to protect you from him, and in doing so, I secured the perfect candidate for my own dilemma. A candidate, Lyla repeated, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. You want to hire me to be your fake fiancé. I want to offer you a contract, William clarified. 6 months. You will wear my ring. You will attend public functions by my side. You will smile for the cameras, and we will convince the European board that I am a committed, devoted man. At the end of the 6 months, we will stage an amicable, quiet breakup, citing irreconcilable differences. No scandal, no fault. Lyla shook her head, taking a step back toward the door. Mr. Ashcroft, this is insane. I am a florist. I have an apartment in Queens with a leaking radiator. I don't belong in your world, and I definitely don't know how to pretend to be in love with a billionaire. I am not asking you to fall in love, Lyla, William said, his use of her first name sending a strange, unexpected shiver down her spine. I am asking you to perform a job, and I am willing to compensate you extraordinarily well for it. He walked back to his desk, picked up a sleek black folder, and held it out to her. Lyla hesitated, but curiosity overrode her panic. She took the folder, flipping it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a list of terms. Her eyes scanned the document, and she felt the air completely leave her lungs. This is a joke, right? Lyla gasped, looking up at him in absolute shock. I never joke about contracts, William said smoothly. If you agree to this arrangement, Ashcroft Enterprises will instantly clear every single dollar of debt currently held in your name. We will purchase the commercial lease for your floral shop, making you the sole owner of the property. And upon the completion of the 6-month term, $2 million will be deposited into a private offshore account in your name, tax-free. Lyla stared at the numbers printed on the page. $2 million. A building of her own. The suffocating, soul-crushing debt Mark had saddled her with, wiped completely clean by tomorrow morning. It was a golden ticket. It was absolute freedom. "Why me?" Lyla whispered, her voice trembling as she looked at the man standing before her. "You could buy anyone to do this. Why a florist you barely know?" William stepped closer, stopping just inches away from her. He reached out, his long fingers gently brushing against her bare arm, lightly tracing the red, angry marks Mark's grip had left behind. Lyla's breath hitched at the unexpected tenderness of the gesture. "Because," William murmured, his gray eyes locking onto hers with a fierce, unwavering intensity, "you have already proven that you know how to survive a betrayal, which means you understand the value of loyalty. And quite frankly, Lyla, I wanted an excuse to destroy the man who made you cry." Lyla stared up at him, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. He was a machine, yes, but looking into his eyes, she saw a protective, lethal fire that made her feel safer than she had in years. She looked down at the contract. She thought of Mark, laughing at her in the ballroom, completely certain that she was nothing but a stepping stone he had successfully discarded. She thought of the endless, exhausted nights she had spent crying over unpaid bills. Lyla closed the folder. She looked back up at William Ashcroft, lifting her chin with a fierce, defiant spark returning to her dark eyes. "Do you have a pen?" she asked. William's lips curved into a slow, devastatingly handsome smile, the kind of smile the media never got to see. "I have several," he replied. The deal was struck in the quiet of the executive office, but as Lyla signed her name on the dotted line, she had absolutely no idea that pretending to love the coldest billionaire in Manhattan was going to be the most dangerous, heartbreaking, and real thing she had ever done in her life. When Lyla woke up the next morning in her cramped, drafty apartment in Queens, for a split second she thought the entire night had been a stress-induced fever dream. Then she looked at her phone. The screen was completely frozen, overloaded with notifications. She had over 400 unread text messages, thousands of new social media followers, and 47 missed calls from a single contact. Mark. Lyla stared at his name on the cracked screen of her phone. Just 24 hours ago, seeing his name would have sent a spike of anxious adrenaline straight to her heart. She would have wondered if he was calling to demand more money to cover a shared credit card, or if he was calling to insult her one last time. But today, looking at the 47 desperate attempts he had made to reach her, Lyla felt absolutely nothing but cold, satisfying vindication. She blocked his number without opening a single message. A sharp knock on her apartment door broke the silence. Lyla threw on a worn bathrobe and cautiously peered through the peephole. Standing in the dingy hallway was a severe-looking woman in a perfectly tailored charcoal pantsuit, flanked by 2 massive security guards who looked like they ate nails for breakfast. Lyla opened the door, pulling her robe tighter around her waist. "Miss White?" the woman said, her tone brisk and entirely professional. "My name is Eleanor. I am Mr. Ashcroft's chief of staff. I have a car waiting downstairs. We have a very tight schedule today, and the press has already discovered your home address. We need to relocate you immediately." Lyla blinked, the reality of what she had agreed to suddenly crashing down on her. "Relocate me? To where?" "To the Ashcroft estate," Eleanor replied, stepping into the small apartment without waiting for an invitation, her sharp eyes scanning the peeling wallpaper and the second-hand furniture. "Mr. Ashcroft's fiancée cannot be seen living in an unsecure building in Queens. Your belongings will be packed and moved by a professional team this afternoon. Please get dressed. Mr. Ashcroft is waiting." An hour later, Lyla was sitting in the back of a bulletproof black SUV, watching her old life literally fade into the rearview mirror. When they arrived at the sprawling, heavily gated Ashcroft estate on the edge of the city, Lyla felt her breath catch in her throat. The mansion was a modern fortress of glass, steel, and dark stone, surrounded by acres of perfectly manicured winter gardens. Eleanor escorted her through the massive double doors and straight into a private, sunlit solarium. Sitting at a glass table, drinking black coffee and reading a financial newspaper on a tablet, was William. He was dressed in a dark navy suit, looking every bit the untouchable titan he was. But when he heard her footsteps, he set the tablet down and stood up. The harsh, calculating edge he carried in the boardroom seemed to soften just a fraction as his gray eyes swept over her simple jeans and oversized sweater. "Good morning, Lyla," William said, his deep voice sending that same unexpected shiver down her spine. "I trust Eleanor didn't overwhelm you. She was very efficient," Lyla managed to say, stepping into the room. "William, my phone hasn't stopped buzzing since 6 this morning. The news, it's everywhere." "I know," William said calmly, pulling out a chair for her. "My PR team has been managing the narrative since midnight. They are spinning a story about a quiet, private romance that we finally decided to make public. It's working perfectly. The European board is already requesting a dinner meeting for tonight." Lyla froze, her hand gripping the back of the chair. "Tonight? But I don't know anything about you. What if they ask me questions? What if I ruin this multi-billion-dollar deal you're trying to close?" "You won't," William said, his absolute certainty acting as a strange, grounding anchor for her panic. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a small black velvet box. He placed it on the glass table between them. "Sit down, Lyla." She slowly sank into the chair, her eyes glued to the box. William didn't open it immediately. He looked at her, his expression turning surprisingly intense. "When a man of my standing gets engaged, the world expects a spectacle. They expect a diamond the size of a golf ball, something entirely gaudy and devoid of character. But as I watched you work yesterday, I noticed something." Lyla swallowed hard. "What did you notice?" "You didn't wear any jewelry," William murmured, his long fingers gently resting on the velvet lid. "Even when you were dressing up for the gala, you kept it simple, practical, elegant. You don't need shiny things to announce your presence in a room." He opened the box. Lyla actually gasped. Resting on the dark velvet was a ring that defied every expectation she had of a billionaire's fake engagement prop. It wasn't a flashy, obnoxious diamond. It was a breathtaking, vintage emerald-cut sapphire, deep and mesmerizing like the ocean, flanked by 2 delicate, flawless trapezoid diamonds on a platinum band. It was elegant. It was fiercely unique. It was exactly the kind of ring she would have chosen for herself in her wildest, most impossible dreams. "It belonged to my grandmother," William said quietly, watching the awe spread across Lyla's face. "It is an Ashcroft family heirloom. If we are going to convince Henrik van der Berg, the man holding the keys to the European shipping conglomerate, that I am serious about family, I need to present him with a woman wearing my family's legacy." He reached across the table, gently taking Lyla's left hand. His touch was warm, his thumb brushing over her knuckles just as it had the night before. He slid the heavy, magnificent sapphire onto her ring finger. It fit perfectly. Lyla looked up from the ring, her dark eyes locking with his piercing gray ones. The air in the solarium suddenly felt very thick, charged with an undeniable, electric current that had absolutely nothing to do with fake contracts or corporate mergers. "It's beautiful," Lyla whispered. "Thank you. You wear it well," William replied, his voice dropping to that dangerous low register. For a moment, the machine was gone, replaced by a man looking at a woman with entirely genuine admiration. But William Ashcroft was a master of his own discipline. He blinked, the walls slamming back into place, and he released her hand, leaning back in his chair. "Eleanor has arranged a wardrobe fitting for you this afternoon," William stated, returning to business. "Tonight we are dining with Henrik van der Berg at Le Bernardin. He is an old-school patriarch. He values loyalty, authenticity, and strength. He detests corporate sycophants." Lyla took a deep breath, looking down at the heavy sapphire on her finger. It felt like a shield. "Okay, authenticity. I can do that." That evening, the private dining room at Le Bernardin was an exercise in high-stakes intimidation. Henrik van der Berg was a massive, bearded Dutchman in his late 60s with a booming laugh and eyes that looked right through you. He was accompanied by his wife, a sharp, elegant woman named Clara. When William and Lyla arrived, the air in the room instantly thickened. Henrik didn't stand to greet William. He simply sat back in his chair, swirling a glass of red wine, his sharp eyes scrutinizing Lyla from the moment she walked through the door. Lyla was wearing a stunning dark plum evening gown that Eleanor had selected. Her hair was swept over one shoulder, and the only jewelry she wore was the sapphire ring. She looked like she belonged there. "William," Henrik boomed, finally offering a curt nod. "I must admit, when I read the morning papers, I thought my translation software had made an error. The untouchable machine of Wall Street engaged to a florist." William pulled Lyla's chair out for her with practiced, flawless grace. "Life is full of surprises, Henrik. May I introduce my fiancée, Lyla White." Clara Vanderberg leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as they zeroed in on the sapphire. "That ring, that is Eleanor Ashcroft's sapphire. I haven't seen that stone in 30 years. William felt it was the only ring appropriate for the occasion," Lyla said smoothly, offering Clara a warm, respectful smile. Henrik snorted, cutting into his steak. "Appropriate? Yes. But is it real, William? Or is this another one of your calculated acquisitions to appease an old man holding the keys to a shipping fleet?" The tension at the table spiked. William's jaw tightened, and Lyla could feel the dangerous, protective energy radiating from him. He was about to deliver a cold, corporate defense. But before he could speak, Lyla reached under the heavy linen tablecloth and gently placed her hand over William's knee. William froze, his gray eyes darting to her. "It's quite real, Mr. Vanderberg," Lyla said, her voice clear and entirely fearless. She didn't look at William. She held Henrik's intimidating gaze without flinching. "Is that so?" Henrik challenged, leaning forward. "Then tell me, Miss White, in a world full of supermodels and heiresses throwing themselves at his bank account, how exactly did a woman who arranges flowers manage to capture the attention of a man who doesn't possess a heart?" It was a cruel question, designed to make her stumble, designed to expose the lie. But Lyla smiled, a genuine soft smile that caught both Henrik and William completely off guard. "Because arranging flowers requires something that William's world desperately lacks," Lyla answered quietly, her thumb subconsciously tracing a pattern against William's knee under the table. "Patience. You see, Mr. Vanderberg, when you build an empire, you force things to grow. You manipulate the market, you acquire assets, you demand immediate results. But you cannot force a rose to bloom before it's ready. You have to cultivate the soil. You have to protect it from the frost. You have to wait." She turned her head, looking directly into William's eyes, and for a terrifying, exhilarating second, she wasn't acting. William spends his entire life surrounded by people who demand things from him, Lyla continued, her voice softening as she held his captive gaze. "People who want his money, his power, his influence. He doesn't have a heart because the world never allowed him the safety to use it. But I don't want his empire. I just wanted the man underneath the armor. And when you stop demanding things from a man like William, you'd be surprised at the kind of loyalty that begins to bloom." Complete silence fell over the private dining room. William stared at Lyla, his breath completely trapped in his chest. The carefully constructed script his PR team had written for them was gone. This wasn't a rehearsed line. This was a piercing, staggering observation of his very soul, delivered by a woman he had hired just 24 hours ago. Henrik slowly set his wineglass down on the table. The harsh, judgmental scowl on his face melted away, replaced by a look of profound, quiet respect. He looked at his wife, Clara, who was dabbing at the corner of her eye with a linen napkin. Then, Henrik threw his head back and let out a massive, booming laugh that rattled the crystal on the table. "By God, William," Henrik roared, slapping his heavy hand on the table. "She didn't just capture your attention. She has completely dismantled you. You are a very lucky man." William didn't look away from Lyla. His hand moved under the table, covering hers where it rested on his knee, his long fingers threading securely through hers. "I am entirely aware of that, Henrik," William murmured, his voice thick with an emotion he couldn't name. The rest of the dinner was a triumph. Henrik engaged Lyla in deep conversation about botany and European garden history, thoroughly charmed by her intelligence and complete lack of pretense. By the time dessert was served, the shipping magnate had turned to William and verbally agreed to the acquisition, stating that he finally trusted the man steering the Ashcroft ship. But as the evening drew to a close, the illusion of safety was shattered. As William and Lyla stood near the coat check in the lavish lobby of the restaurant, waiting for their driver, Lyla felt a heavy tap on her shoulder. She turned around. Standing there, flanked by two other men who looked like aggressive venture capitalists, was Mark. He was wearing a sneer that looked slightly desperate around the edges. "Well, if it isn't the future Mrs. Ashcroft," Mark said, his eyes dropping to the massive sapphire on her finger. Jealousy radiated off him in waves. "Funny seeing you here, Lyla. I see you're playing your new role very well." William stepped in front of Lyla instantly, his entire demeanor snapping back into the lethal, terrifying predator from the night before. But this time, Lyla didn't shrink back. The sapphire on her finger felt heavy. The warmth of William's hand lingering on hers gave her a courage she hadn't felt in years. "William," Lyla said softly, placing a hand on his broad chest to stop him. "Let me." William looked down at her. He saw the fierce, unyielding fire in her dark eyes. Slowly, reluctantly, he stepped back, giving her the floor, though his body remained tightly coiled, ready to strike if Mark so much as breathed incorrectly. Lyla stepped up to Mark. She looked at the man who had stolen her savings, broken her heart and discarded her like trash, and she felt absolutely nothing. "Mark," Lyla said, her voice dripping with a cold, terrifying calm that mirrored William perfectly. "I suggest you walk away, because unlike you, I don't need to use other people to secure my future. And if you ever try to speak to me again, William won't have to ruin your pathetic little startup." She leaned in slightly, a cold smile touching her lips. "I will do it myself." Mark's face went completely slack. The two aggressive venture capitalists flanking him suddenly found the intricate pattern of the lobby carpet fascinating, desperately trying to distance themselves from a man who had just been publicly dressed down by William Ashcroft's fiancée. Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked at Lyla's cold, unyielding expression, then shifted his gaze to William, who was watching Lyla with a look of such intense, terrifying pride that it made the hair on the back of Mark's neck stand up. Mark swallowed hard, turned on his heel, and practically bolted out the revolving glass doors into the freezing Manhattan night. William didn't say a word until they were safely secured in the soundproof, luxurious cabin of his armored Maybach. As the car pulled away from the curb, merging into the glowing stream of city traffic, the adrenaline that had been holding Lyla together suddenly evaporated. She let out a long, shaky breath, sinking back into the plush leather seat and closing her eyes. Her hands, resting in her lap, were trembling slightly. "Remind me." William's deep voice resonated in the quiet space, breaking the silence. "Never to cross you, Miss White. That was the most ruthlessly efficient execution I have witnessed in a very long time." Lyla opened her eyes, turning her head to look at him. William had loosened his silk tie and unbuttoned his suit jacket, looking relaxed for the first time all evening. The streetlights flickered across his sharp features, highlighting the genuine amusement dancing in his gray eyes. "I was terrified," Lyla admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "My knees were shaking so badly I thought I was going to collapse right there in the coat check." "But you didn't," William pointed out, softly. He shifted closer to her, the sheer physical gravity of the man pulling the air from her lungs. "You stood your ground. You looked a bully in the eye and you took your power back. And before that, you managed to charm the most cynical shipping magnate in Europe into handing me a $4 billion acquisition on a silver platter." He reached across the seat. For a moment, Lyla thought he was going to take her hand again, but instead, his long fingers gently brushed a stray lock of dark hair behind her ear. The touch was fleeting, but it sent a shockwave of heat straight down to her toes. "You are a very dangerous investment, Lyla White," William murmured, his gaze dropping briefly to her lips before returning to her eyes. "You're entirely unpredictable." "Is that a breach of contract?" she asked, a breathless, nervous smile pulling at the corner of her mouth. "No," William replied, his voice dropping to a gravelly, intimate register. "It's the best return on investment I've ever made." The rest of the drive back to the Ashcroft estate was spent in a thick, charged silence. The lines of their carefully drafted contract were already beginning to blur, the ink smudged by the undeniable electric chemistry pulling them together. When they arrived at the estate, Eleanor was waiting in the grand foyer. She informed Lyla that her belongings had been moved from Queen's and unpacked in the master guest suite, a room that, conveniently, shared a connecting door with William's own sprawling master bedroom. "The staff talks," William explained smoothly as he walked her up the sweeping marble staircase. "And the board of directors pays very well for gossip. If we are going to sell the narrative of a sweeping, passionate romance, we cannot be seen sleeping on opposite ends of a 30-room mansion." Lyla nodded, her stomach doing a complicated flip. "Right, the narrative." Her suite was breathtaking. It was a massive room decorated in soft creams and brushed gold, featuring a king-sized bed, a roaring fireplace, and a private balcony overlooking the winter gardens. But despite the luxury, it felt impossibly quiet, impossibly lonely. Later that night, unable to sleep, Lyla slipped out of bed. She wrapped herself in a thick cashmere robe she found in the closet and padded softly down the grand, darkened hallways of the estate, searching for the kitchen. She needed a glass of water, or maybe a cup of tea to settle her racing mind. As she neared the south wing, she noticed a sliver of golden light spilling out from beneath heavy mahogany double doors. It was William's private study, curiosity getting the better of her. Lyla pushed the door open just a fraction. The study was lined with thousands of books, smelling of old paper, leather, and cedar. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat William. He was wearing a simple gray t-shirt and dark sweatpants, his hair slightly rumpled, a pair of reading glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. He was staring intensely at a glowing computer screen, surrounded by stacks of financial dossiers. He looked exhausted. He looked human. "You should be sleeping," William said, not looking up from his screen. Lyla jumped, her hand flying to her chest. "How did you know I was there?" "You don't walk as quietly as you think you do," he replied, finally looking up. The harsh glow of the monitor cast deep shadows under his eyes. He took off his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Is the room not to your liking?" "The room is beautiful," Lyla said, stepping fully into the study. My mind wouldn't shut off. I came looking for the kitchen." William stood up, walking over to a small, hidden wet bar in the corner of the study. "Allow me. Sparkling or still? Just tap water is fine, thank you." He poured her a glass of water and handed it to her. As their fingers brushed, the static electricity in the dry, heated room caused a tiny spark to jump between them. They both pulled back, slightly staring at each other in the quiet, dim light of the study. "William," Lyla started, clutching the cool glass with both hands. "About what I said tonight at dinner. To Mr. Vanderberg, I hope I didn't overstep. I know I was supposed to stick to the script your PR team gave me, but he was testing you. He wanted to see if I was just another corporate asset." William leaned back against the mahogany bar, crossing his arms over his chest. His t-shirt pulled taut across his broad shoulders. "You didn't overstep. You saved the deal. But I have to ask." He tilted his head, his gray eyes piercing right through her defenses. "Did you mean it?" Lyla's breath hitched. "Mean what?" "That you didn't want the empire. That you just wanted the man underneath the armor." The question hung heavily in the air between them. It was a dangerous line to cross. They were bound by a 6-month contract, a financial transaction designed to save her business and secure his acquisition. Admitting that she was beginning to see the real, fiercely protective man behind the billionaire facade felt like stepping off a cliff without a parachute. "I meant it," Lyla whispered, her heart hammering in her throat. She looked down at the massive sapphire on her finger, then back up into his eyes. "You spend your entire life building walls to keep people out. But yesterday, when Mark grabbed me, you didn't just step between us. You threw yourself in front of me. No one has ever protected me like that, William, not ever." William's jaw clenched. The absolute vulnerability in her dark eyes was stripping away his own carefully constructed defenses piece by piece. He took a slow step toward her, closing the distance until he was standing just inches away. "I told you," William murmured, his voice incredibly rough, raw with an emotion he had spent a lifetime burying. "I protect my investments. And you, Lyla White, are the most valuable thing in this entire estate." He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. His thumb traced her cheekbone, his touch so incredibly gentle it made her want to weep. Lyla leaned into his palm, her eyes fluttering shut as a soft sigh escaped her lips. For a breathless, agonizing second, William leaned down. His lips were mere millimeters from hers. Lyla could feel the heat of his breath, the intoxicating scent of cedar wrapping around her senses. She waited for the kiss, her entire body trembling with anticipation. But suddenly, the harsh, shrill ringing of the desk phone shattered the silence like a gunshot. William froze. He pulled back, his eyes darkening with immediate frustration. He stared at her lips for a fraction of a second longer, before turning abruptly and walking to the desk. He snatched the phone off the receiver. "This had better be a matter of life and death, Eleanor." William barked into the phone, his corporate armor slamming back into place instantly. Lyla stood frozen, her cheek still burning from his touch. her heart crashing painfully against her ribs. She took a step back, wrapping her arms around her waist, instantly feeling the cold draft of the massive house. William listened for a moment, his face draining of all color. The anger vanished, replaced by a cold, terrifying stillness. "When?" William demanded, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "Who ran the story?" Lyla felt the bottom drop out of her stomach. "William? What is it?" William hung up the phone. He looked at Lyla, his expression unreadable. "It seems your ex-boyfriend is not as entirely stupid as I originally calculated," William said quietly, walking around the desk. "He didn't go to the business press. He went to the tabloids, and he didn't go empty-handed." William picked up a remote and clicked a button. A massive, flat-screen television on the far wall hummed to life, tuned to a 24-hour entertainment news network. Splashed across the screen was a highly unflattering, zoomed-in photo of Lyla, carrying buckets of flowers, looking exhausted and sweaty. Next to it was a photo of William from the gala. The headline underneath read, "Billionaire's new fiancée, gold digger or desperate debtor. The shocking truth behind Manhattan's newest Cinderella." "Mark sold them your financial records," William explained, his voice rigid with fury. "He leaked the shared debt he left you with, the late notices, everything. The narrative they are spinning right now is that you targeted me to save yourself from bankruptcy. They are calling you a con artist, Lyla." Lyla stared at the screen, all the warmth draining from her body. The humiliation was absolute. The entire world was currently waking up to the explicit details of her most desperate, agonizing struggles. They were painting her as a predator, a desperate woman clawing her way into a billionaire's bank account. "The European board will see this," Lyla whispered in horror, stepping away from the television. "Mr. Vanderberg will see this. He'll think I lied to him tonight. He'll pull the acquisition." "To hell with the acquisition," William snarled, slamming his fist down on the mahogany desk with such force the wood cracked. Lyla flinched, staring at him in shock. She had never seen him lose control. "I don't care about the shipping fleet," William continued, his eyes blazing with a terrifying protective fire as he marched toward her. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look away from the screen and up into his face. "I care that this coward is attempting to humiliate you on a global scale. I care that he is trying to destroy your business and your reputation." "William, what are we going to do?" Lyla asked, her voice trembling. "If we deny it, he has the paperwork to prove I was broke. If we confirm it, it proves I needed your money." "We don't do anything defensively," William said, his voice dropping to a dangerous, icy calm that was far more terrifying than his shout. He released her shoulders and pulled, his cell phone from his pocket dialing a number. "We go on the offensive, and we bury him." William pressed the phone to his ear, his eyes locked on Lyla. "Get my legal team out of bed," William ordered the person on the other end of the line. "I want a defamation suit drafted by Sunrise, and contact the network executives. Tell them if they don't pull that story in the next 10 minutes, Ashcroft Enterprises will pull every single dollar of advertising revenue we hold across their entire conglomerate. We will bleed them dry." He hung up, tossing the phone onto the desk. "He wanted a war," William said softly, looking at Lyla with a fiercely protective, absolute devotion that made her breath catch all over again. "He has absolutely no idea who he just declared it on." By dawn, the Ashcroft estate had transformed from a silent, sprawling mansion into a high-tech corporate war room. Lyla sat curled in the corner of a massive leather sofa in the library, a cup of untouched coffee, growing cold in her hands. The room was buzzing with a frantic, terrifying energy. A dozen of Manhattan's most lethal corporate attorneys, crisis management experts, and PR directors were pacing the Persian rugs, their voices a cacophony of legal jargon and damage control strategies. At the center of the storm stood William. He hadn't slept. He was still wearing the gray t-shirt and dark sweatpants from the night before, but the casual attire did absolutely nothing to diminish the terrifying authority rolling off him in waves. He was orchestrating the dismantling of a media empire with the precision of a military general. The network pulled the broadcast at 4:12 a.m., Eleanor, William's chief of staff, reported, looking up from a glowing tablet. "But the damage on social media is already done." The article was syndicated. Mark's name isn't officially attached as the source, but the financial documents provided to the tabloids could only have come from a co-signer on the original lease. "It's him. Then we don't just sue the network," William ordered, his voice a low, dangerous rumble that commanded absolute silence in the room. We subpoena Mark's personal communication devices. I want every email, every text message, every bank transfer he made in the last 48 hours. If he accepted a single dime from that tabloid for those documents, I will have him brought up on federal extortion charges by noon. One of the senior lawyers adjusted his glasses nervously. Mr. Ashcroft, a defamation suit of this magnitude will take months, perhaps years. In the immediate term, we have the European acquisition to consider. Henrik Vanderberg's office called 20 minutes ago. He is demanding an emergency meeting at 10 o'clock this morning. He has seen the headlines. Lyla squeezed her eyes shut, a wave of profound guilt washing over her. She set her coffee mug down with a trembling hand and stood up. The room instantly fell quiet, a dozen pairs of eyes turning to look at the florist who had accidentally brought the Ashcroft empire to the brink of a public relations disaster. "William," Lyla said, her voice shaking but resolute, "I need to speak with you, privately." William didn't hesitate. He dismissed the room of highly paid executives with a single sharp flick of his wrist. Within 30 seconds, the library was entirely empty, the heavy oak doors clicking shut. "You're packing," William stated flatly, his piercing gray eyes locking onto her. He closed the distance between them, stopping just a foot away. "I can see it in your eyes, Lyla. You're calculating how fast you can get your things and walk out the front door." "Because I am destroying everything you've built," Lyla cried, the tears she had been fighting all morning finally spilling over. "William, Henrik is going to pull the $4 billion deal. Your board of directors is going to crucify you. Mark didn't just leak my debt. He painted me as a gold digger who conned you. The only way to save your acquisition, to save your reputation, is to tell the truth. Tell them I was a hired employee, tear up the contract and let me go." No, the word was spoken so quietly, so absolutely, that it sucked the oxygen straight out of the room. Lyla stared at him, her chest heaving. "William, be reasonable. You don't owe me this. You stepped in to protect me at the gala, and I will be grateful for the rest of my life. But this is a war you do not have to fight. I am a liability." William reached out, his large hands gripping her shoulders. His grip was firm, grounding her spiraling panic with a physical, undeniable warmth. "Listen to me very carefully, Lyla White," William commanded, his voice vibrating with a raw, terrifying intensity. "I do not run from cowards. I do not abandon the people under my protection, and I am absolutely, unequivocally, not letting you walk out that door." "But the contract! To hell with the contract!" William shouted, the sudden explosion of volume making Lyla jump. He released her shoulders, walked over to his massive oak desk and yanked open the top drawer. He pulled out the thick, leather-bound folder containing the fake engagement agreement they had signed just 24 hours ago. Without a second of hesitation, William Ashcroft gripped the thick stack of legal paper and ripped it entirely in half, tossing the shredded pieces onto the floor. Lyla gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "What did you just do?" "I terminated the transaction," William said, his chest rising and falling heavily, his gray eyes blazing as he walked back to her. "There is no contract anymore, Lyla. You are not my employee. You are not a liability. You are the woman I am going to walk into that boardroom with, and you are the woman I am going to defend. Not because I paid you to be there, but because I want you there." He reached out, his long fingers gently cupping her face, his thumb wiping a tear from her cheek. "I told you. Last night," William whispered, the harshness melting from his voice, leaving behind a devastating, naked vulnerability. "You are the most valuable thing in this estate. I will burn the shipping deal to the ground before I let that pathetic excuse for a man make you feel like you aren't worthy of standing by my side. Now go upstairs and put on the most powerful dress you own. We have a meeting with a Dutchman." 2 hours later, the atmosphere in the glass-walled executive boardroom at the pinnacle of Ashcroft Tower was thick enough to cut with a knife. Henrik Vanderberg sat at the head of the massive mahogany table. Splayed out in front of him was a printed copy of the tabloid article, complete with the unflattering photos and the damning financial records Mark had leaked. Henrik looked furious. His traditional old-world values were deeply offended by the stench of a public scandal. The heavy glass doors swung open. William entered, wearing a flawless, midnight blue bespoke suit, radiating absolute, terrifying power. Beside him, walking with her head held high, was Lyla. She was wearing a tailored ivory white sheath dress, her dark hair slicked back, the vintage Ashcroft sapphire glittering on her finger like a weapon. She looked like a queen stepping onto a battlefield. They took their seats opposite Henrik. William didn't wait for the shipping magnate to speak. "I assume we are not here to discuss international freight logistics, Henrik," William stated, his voice a smooth, impenetrable sheet of ice. Henrik slammed his heavy hand down on the tabloid article. "I am here to discuss this absolute circus, William. When we dined last night, I looked this young woman in the eye and believed she was the anchor you needed. Now I wake up to read that she is drowning in debt, that her business was failing, and that you are nothing but a financial lifeline she manipulated into an engagement. I demand to know the truth. Did you buy her?" Lyla's breath hitched, the cruel bluntness of the question stinging like a physical blow. She prepared herself for William to spin a brilliant PR lie. She prepared for him to deny the debt entirely. But William Ashcroft didn't lie. "Yes," William said, his voice ringing out with crystal clear authority in the silent boardroom. "She was drowning in debt. And yes, I paid every single cent of it." Lyla turned her head, staring at William in absolute shock. Henrik's eyes widened, his face flushing with anger. "You admit it?" Henrik growled. "You admit this is a transaction? You take me for a fool, William. I admit that the woman sitting next to me was systematically financially abused by a parasitic coward who used her credit to fund his own pathetic ambitions," William fired back, leaning forward, the lethal predator finally uncoiling. "I admit that she worked 18-hour days, tearing her hands apart to pay back money she never spent, just to keep her honor intact." William didn't look at Henrik. He turned his head and looked directly at Lyla. "I did not buy her, Henrik," William said softly, though the words carried the weight of absolute thunder. "You cannot buy a woman who refuses to be owned. But when I found out that a man had placed a financial chain around her neck, I used my resources to shatter it. Not to purchase her affection, but to free her, because a woman with her resilience, her loyalty, and her magnificent, unyielding heart deserves to build an empire, not pay off a coward's debt." William turned his piercing gaze back to the stunned shipping magnate. "The tabloids call her a gold digger because they are terrified of a woman who knows how to survive," William concluded, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "So, if your old world values cannot stomach the fact that my fiancée had to fight her way through hell to sit at this table, then you can take your shipping fleet and walk out of my building right now, because I will not apologize for protecting the woman I love." The silence in the boardroom was absolute. Lyla sat completely frozen, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. "The woman I love." He had said it in front of the most powerful men in the room. He had said it without a contract binding him. Henrik Vanderberg stared at William. He looked at the printed tabloid article on the table, then looked up at Lyla, taking in her proud, tear-filled eyes and the defiant tilt of her chin. Slowly, the massive Dutchman reached out, picked up the tabloid article and tore it in half. "A man who will burn a $4 billion deal to protect the honor of his woman," Henrik murmured, a slow, deep smile spreading across his bearded face. "That is exactly the kind of unyielding loyalty I demand from the man who takes over my legacy." Henrik stood up, extending a massive hand across the table. "The acquisition goes through, William. And Miss White?" Henrik offered a respectful bow of his head. "I look forward to seeing the empire you help him build." The relief that washed over Lyla was so profound it made her lightheaded. The deal was secure. The scandal had failed to break them. But William wasn't finished. As they walked out of the boardroom, William pulled his cell phone from his pocket and made a single brief call. "Execute the strike," William ordered coldly. Across the city, in a sleek, glass-walled office in Silicon Valley, Mark was celebrating. He was surrounded by his new venture capital investors, popping champagne, riding the high of watching his ex-girlfriend get dragged through the mud on national television. Suddenly, the lead investor's phone rang. The man answered it, his smile dropping instantly. He listened for 30 seconds, his face turning completely ashen. He hung up the phone and looked at Mark as if he were a ghost. "The funding is pulled," the investor said, his voice shaking. Mark laughed, thinking it was a joke. "What do you mean, pulled? The contracts are signed. William Ashcroft just personally blacklisted this firm," the investor snapped, throwing his champagne glass onto the table. "He just put out a blind directive. Any financial institution on the globe that does business with you will be systematically dismantled by Ashcroft Enterprises by the end of the fiscal quarter. You are radioactive, Mark. We're pulling out. Everyone is pulling out. You're ruined." Mark stood frozen as the room of wealthy investors scrambled toward the door, abandoning him. In a matter of seconds, the champagne went flat. The tech startup he had sacrificed Lyla to build crumbled into dust before it even launched. Karma hadn't just caught up to him. It had hit him with the force of a freight train driven by a furious billionaire. That evening, the Ashcroft estate was finally quiet. The lawyers had gone home. The PR team was celebrating a massive victory as the narrative shifted from scandal to a sweeping modern-day fairy tale of a CEO protecting his brilliant, self-made fiancé. Lyla stood on the balcony of her guest suite, the freezing winter wind whipping through her hair. She looked out over the darkened gardens, trying to process the absolute insanity of the last 48 hours. She was debt-free, her business was secure, and the man who had terrified her just days ago was now the only person in the world she wanted to see. She heard the soft click of the connecting door opening. William stepped onto the balcony. He had finally changed out of his suit, wearing a dark cashmere sweater and jeans. He walked up beside her, leaning his forearms against the stone balustrade, looking out at the city lights in the distance. "He's bankrupt," William said quietly into the night air. "Mark, the venture capital pulled out. His creditors are calling in his loans. He will spend the next 10 years trying to dig himself out of the exact same hole he threw you into." Lyla looked at William's sharp profile. "You didn't have to do that. I told you." William turned his head, his gray eyes locking onto hers, dark and intense. "I wanted an excuse to destroy the man who made you cry." Lyla turned to face him fully. The biting cold of the winter air vanished, replaced by the overwhelming magnetic heat radiating from his large frame. She looked down at the shredded pieces of their contract that she knew were still sitting in his library trash can. "You tore up the agreement today," Lyla whispered, her heart kicking into a dangerous, frantic rhythm. "In front of Henrik, you said. You said you loved me. You didn't have to go that far to sell the story, William." William stepped closer, completely eliminating the space between them. The sheer size of him shielded her from the wind. He reached out, his warm hands cupping her freezing face, his thumbs gently brushing across her cheekbones. "I wasn't selling a story, Lyla," William murmured, his voice incredibly rough, completely stripped of his corporate armor. "I am a man of logic. I calculate risks. I don't believe in sudden, irrational emotions. But when I saw you standing in my ballroom, refusing to back down from a man twice your size, and when I saw you sit at that dinner table and see straight through to the darkest, loneliest parts of my soul, the logic vanished." He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers, his breath ghosting over her lips. "I tore up the contract because I don't want to rent your time for 6 months," William confessed, the absolute, terrifying vulnerability of the Ice King entirely exposed to her. "I want the rest of your life if you'll have me." Lyla's breath hitched. She looked into the eyes of the man who owned the world and realized he was offering the only thing he had never given to anyone else, his heart. She reached up, her hands sliding into his thick, dark hair. "I don't sign contracts without reading the fine print, Mr. Ashcroft," Lyla whispered, a soft, radiant smile breaking across her face. "There is no fine print," William groaned, unable to wait another second. He closed the final fraction of an inch between them, capturing her lips in a kiss that absolutely shattered the winter night. It was a kiss fueled by the adrenaline of the boardroom, the desperate, protective fury of the last 24 hours, and a deep, consuming passion that had been burning between them since the moment he first grabbed her waist in the ballroom. Lyla kissed him back with everything she had, her fingers gripping his, sweater as he wrapped his massive arms around her, lifting her off her feet and pulling her flush against his chest. The fake engagement was officially dead. The real one had just begun. Time has a funny way of balancing the scales. When you spend your life giving everything you have to the wrong people, the universe often waits for the perfect moment to introduce you to the right one. And for Lyla White, the universe didn't just balance the scales, it shattered them completely. 1 year after the infamous Ashcroft Winter Charity Gala, the Manhattan skyline looked a little different. In the heart of the Upper East Side, a brand new storefront had opened its doors. It didn't belong to a tech startup, and it certainly didn't belong to Mark. The elegant gold leaf lettering above the massive glass windows read simply, "Lyla White, Floral Couture." Lyla hadn't just paid off her debts. She had built an empire of her own, with the lease secured and the suffocating weight of financial ruin permanently lifted from her shoulders. Her undeniable talent had exploded. She was no longer the invisible girl working in the background of billionaire parties. She was the most sought-after floral designer on the East Coast, and she hadn't done it with William's money. She had done it with her own two hands, her own relentless work ethic, and the unwavering, fierce support of a man who believed in her vision more than anyone else in the world. It was a crisp, brilliant Saturday afternoon in Tours, late December, exactly 1 year to the day since William Ashcroft had stepped out of the shadows and terrified her ex-boyfriend into submission. But today, William wasn't wearing a scowl, and he wasn't barking orders into a cell phone. He was standing at the altar in the center of the Ashcroft Estate's winter gardens, looking entirely, hopelessly in love. The wedding was nothing like the sterile, PR-orchestrated corporate events William was used to hosting. The massive glass solarium had been transformed into a breathtaking wild wonderland of white winter roses, cascading silver vines, and thousands of glowing candles. Lyla had designed every single inch of it herself. It wasn't a show of wealth. It was a masterpiece of absolute passion. The guest list was small, completely devoid of the opportunistic socialites and aggressive venture capitalists who usually populated William's world. Henrik and Clara Vanderberg were sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. Eleanor, William's normally terrifying chief of staff, was actually dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. And then, the string quartet began to play. The heavy mahogany doors at the back of the solarium opened, and Lyla appeared. William literally stopped breathing. She was a vision in a sweeping, long-sleeved gown of delicate ivory lace. Her dark hair was pinned up with fresh, fragrant orchids, and the vintage Ashcroft sapphire on her left hand caught the flickering candlelight. But it wasn't the dress or the jewels that brought the ruthless billionaire to his knees. It was the radiant, fearless smile on her face as she looked down the aisle directly at him. William didn't wait for her to reach the altar. Completely ignoring protocol, the man who was famous for his strict, machine-like discipline stepped off the platform and walked halfway down the aisle to meet her. A soft ripple of laughter and awe swept through the small crowd of guests. William stopped in front of her, his large hands reaching out to gently frame her face. He didn't care who was watching. He didn't care about the cameras or the society pages. He only cared about the woman who had marched into his boardroom, looked a billionaire in the eye, and taught him how to finally feel. "You're breaking the rules, Mr. Ashcroft," Lyla whispered, her dark eyes shimmering with happy tears as she looked up at him. "I make the rules, Mrs. Ashcroft," William murmured, his voice thick with an emotion that still, even after a year, managed to surprise him. "And the rule is that I am never spending another second further away from you than I absolutely have to." He offered her his arm, and together, they walked the rest of the way to the altar. When they exchanged their vows, they didn't use the standard rehearsed scripts. Lyla held William's large, warm hands in hers, looking up into the piercing gray eyes that had once terrified the city, but now only looked at her with absolute, unwavering devotion. "A year ago, I thought my life was over," Lyla said, her voice echoing clearly in the quiet, candlelit room. "I thought I had nothing left to give, but then a man stepped out of the shadows and fought a war for me that I didn't even know I was allowed to win. You gave me back my voice, William. You gave me back my courage. But most importantly, you gave me a heart that I promised to protect, to cherish, and to choose every single day for the rest of my life." William's jaw tightened, fighting the overwhelming surge of emotion that threatened to completely dismantle him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple, elegant platinum wedding band. "I spent my entire life building an empire of glass and steel," William said, his deep voice carrying the undeniable weight of absolute truth. "I believed that love was a liability. I believed that vulnerability was a weakness. And then I watched you stand your ground against a man who tried to break you, and I realized that my empire meant absolutely nothing if you weren't standing at the center of it." He slid the platinum band onto her finger, right next to his grandmother's sapphire. "You didn't just arrange the flowers in my life, Lyla," William whispered, leaning in so only she could hear the final, desperate confession of his soul. "You planted a garden in a wasteland. I am entirely, irrevocably yours." The officiant didn't even need to tell them to kiss. William wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her flush against his chest, capturing her lips in a kiss that sealed their forever. The guests erupted into applause, the sound echoing off the glass walls of the solarium, ringing out into the crisp winter night. As for Mark, Somewhere in a tiny, cramped apartment on the outskirts of the city, Mark was sitting on a second-hand sofa, wearing a cheap polyester uniform for a mid-level data entry job he hated. He had spent the last year dodging debt collectors and watching his grand tech dreams turn to ash. He gloomily scrolled through his phone during a mandatory break, only to freeze when a viral post popped up on his feed. It was a brief, elegant video clip of William and Lyla leaving their wedding reception, trending worldwide. They looked like modern-day royalty, deeply and completely in love. Mark locked his screen, sitting in the silence of his own making. He had chased the illusion of wealth and discarded the only person who had ever truly loved him, and in the end, he was left with exactly what he deserved: absolutely nothing. Back at the Ashcroft estate, the reception was in full swing. Lyla and William slipped away from the crowded ballroom, stepping out onto the very same balcony where they had shared their first real kiss a year ago. The winter air was biting, but Lyla didn't feel the cold. William was standing behind her, his chest pressed against her back, his arms wrapped securely around her waist, keeping her perfectly warm. She leaned her head back against his shoulder, looking up at the glittering expanse of the stars. "We did it," Lyla whispered, her hands resting over his where they were clasped at her waist. "We did," William agreed, pressing a soft, lingering kiss to the side of her neck, making her shiver with delight. "Though I have to admit my lawyers were very disappointed they never got to execute that defamation lawsuit." Lyla laughed, turning in his arms so she could wrap her hands around his neck. "I think the universe handled the lawsuit for us. Karma is much more efficient than a courtroom, perhaps," William murmured, his gray eyes darkening with that familiar, intense hunger as he looked down at his beautiful wife. "But I still prefer to handle my investments personally." He leaned down, capturing her lips once more under the Manhattan sky. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't a PR stunt. It was the real, breathtaking, entirely unpredictable thing. The Ice King had finally melted, and the florist had finally bloomed. And together, they built an empire that no amount of money in the world could ever buy. And that, dear listeners, is the end of our story today. Sometimes the worst betrayal you ever experience is simply the universe clearing out the wrong person, so the right one can finally step in and protect you the way you always deserved. If you loved seeing Lyla go from a struggling, broken-hearted florist to a powerful CEO who captured the heart of Manhattan's most untouchable billionaire, leave a comment down below with the word Empire. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that true loyalty still exists and karma never misses an address. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next story.